I am super excited about my guest today. This guest has been an actress for almost her entire life, but she is best known for her iconic role as Detective Juliet O'Hare. Now, in the hit show Psych, which is a show that I was part of when I was at the USA Network, and it ran for 8 seasons, and they have since done 3 movies without me. um,
Boo. Yay
no,
for the
it's
movies. Boo without Jackie.
no, it's all good. And she is now not only still an actress and also one of my favorite people in the world. She is the
Same.
host of not one, but 2 podcasts. One is called The Psychologists Are In with her co host and dear friend and co star, Tim Amundsen. And the other is called Me Time.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of both podcasts because they are both very much like just spending time with her, which always feels like you're spending time with an old friend. And with that, I want to introduce you to my old friend, Maggie Lawson.
You're gonna make me cry, Jackie. That's so nice. I feel the exact same way. It's so weird. I feel like we just have like this soul thing. From the day I met you, I just feel like even if time goes by and we don't see each other for a while, I sit down with you and it's like I'm sitting down with my like best friend, like one of
I
my,
feel the same. I
yeah.
totally feel the same way. And I have been so honored to have been on both of your podcasts before, The
Yeah.
Psychologists Are In and Me Time. And I'm like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be on these. You should be on mine. And so finally, I get the pleasure of turning around guest and host, and I get to be the host and host you this time.
Oh my
But I'm
God.
so happy to see you, and I'm just so happy to talk to you. And I would just like to, I mean, I can't imagine anybody who listens to my podcast doesn't know sort of that I was in television before, but moreover, I very rarely ever run into anybody who doesn't know what Psych is and the 8 seasons of
Mm,
Psych that ran on USA Network and now on Amazon, and I think also on Peacock. But
I think so,
what I
yeah.
would love to do is just kind of give them your backstory, and then we'll catch up to like what you're up to today. But will you just tell our audience like the whole thing about like how did you even come to become an actress and move to LA and all the things?
Oh my God, Jackie. Okay. Yes. I'll like take a breath because I actually haven't told this story or talked about this in a while.
It's like an exclusive.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes. So I did my first play when I was 8 years old.
Oh my God.
I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. And
Oh,
that was kind of it for me, honestly. I feel like I was really lucky because at 8 years old, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But obviously, that was at 8. And I got really, really, really lucky in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky to work with amazing people and kind of continue after that. That was at our like summer theater, like our
yeah,
amphitheater,
yeah.
the musical theater of Louisville is what it was called. And so from there, it was just because I enjoyed it so much, I would like audition for other things. And then my whole childhood, I really was doing plays at our dinner theater and then this theater and our children's theater in Louisville. And when I was like 12, I remember showcases, Jackie. Do you remember like, okay, maybe not, maybe actors, I don't know. So, okay,
Oh
showcase.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Showcases were done all the time in Hollywood. People invited you to a showcase and you did either a monologue or skits or several
Yeah.
skits or whatever. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, so the showcases were, I guess they were touring. There were touring showcases that would just go to cities too, where they would invite
Mm.
local people, talent, whatever, to come do the same exact thing, read a monologue. They might make you cold read something, whatever it was. And there would be casting directors and agents and people like that there. And I went to one when I was 12, and I ended up reading a scene from a sitcom. I don't remember. I just remember a guy gave my mom his card and was like, if you ever come to LA, call me. He said he was an agent at an agency in LA. I knew nothing about it. We knew nothing about it. And this goes back so far. My mom put his card in her cigarette holder.
Oh my goodness.
She had like this gold cigarette.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so this was what, 92? And didn't think about it again, really. I think we had a conversation. My family, we did not have the means to be planning or going to LA anytime soon or whatever. So it was something that I think we kind of dreamed about for a second. And then I was like, I want to be a kid and just like play
Mhm.
softball and do my plays here or whatever. It just felt really big and scary, I think, to all of us. But a couple years went by, and a director I was working with in a play in Louisville, I'm now 15. And I tell him this story about this showcase I went to.
Mhm.
And he was an actor. He was such an incredible, I still know John. He's wonderful. He's a director and actor, and he had been working in LA. He'd been going back and forth for years. And he's been in some movies and TV shows. And so John was a little bit of a celebrity too. But he asked my mom, he's like, do you mind if I, like, do you still have that card that the agent gave you? And
And it's literally been in her cigarette case for 3 years?
3 years.
Oh
My
my god.
mom still has the card. My mom
That's
had,
hilarious.
yeah, I mean, moms, like, you just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's just like she saved it. It was
yeah.
like a special day. And I don't know why after years and years, like, she didn't feel the need to, I mean, we just didn't throw it away. I don't know, maybe she knew something. But my mom said, as we were telling him the story, can I see the card? And it was this agent. So the card was Jeff Witches from William Morris Agency. Do you know Jeff? Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I know
so
of him. I know of
aware of
him.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And John flips out and he's just like, are you kidding me? This is a major agency.
Yeah.
Like, if this is whatever. So he freaks out and we're like, we didn't know. And so again, we were not really in a position. I had been lucky enough to have been like a local, I was doing these like local, I was like a local kids journalist on our Fox station there. And I was
Uh-huh.
lucky enough to have like made a teeny bit of money, but enough to get like a plane ticket. And my mom, had enough to get a plane ticket at the time. And so we were like, well, if we could go out, should we call this guy? Should we like,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this a real
3
thing?
years later. Yeah.
3 years later, Jackie,
As you're scraping the tobacco, off the
off of the
card.
card. Like, I can see it perfectly. I see, like, the logo and, like, my
Yeah.
mom's gold case and whatever. Anyway, I get on the phone. I call the William Morris Agency at 15
Uh-huh.
years old, and I say, "Hi, my name," I'm sure I have my, like, Southern accent. I'm like, "My name is Maggie Lawson. I met one of your agents, like, 3 years ago, and he said to give him a call if I was ever gonna come to LA, and my family's thinking about it, and da, da, da." So, the person's like, "Okay, I'll patch you through." So now I'm, like, to his assistant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He takes my call.
That's amazing. Did he remember who you were, or he just took it because he's
No.
a nice guy?
He took my call. Well, I told the assistant the story. The
Mhm,
assistant passes it on to him. I remember
mhm.
all of this like it was yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
And he was like, they're like, Hold on a second." And he picks up the phone. He's like, "Hello, Jeff Widges, whatever." And he's like, "Look, if I gave you my card,
Uh-huh.
I will meet you if you do come to
Oh,
LA. Like, I
wow.
will stand by
Wow.
that." And obviously there was something there, whatever. And I tell John this. And anyway, so one thing leads to another. We finally get a trip out to LA. And there were lots of little pieces in here. Of course, I'm leaving a lot of it out. But one thing led to another in that I met Jeff Witches, who was like, "You're very green and I'm not going to sign you, but if you need any help or guidance, let me know while you're here." It was a spring break I was on. And if I can, vet anyone for you that you might meet or yet, like, he was so kind. He's like, "And then when you get some work under your belt, come back to me."
Yeah.
And so John had a good friend who was a casting director. So I had another meeting set up when I came out, which was this casting director, Fran Bascom, who cast The Days of Our Lives. Fran agreed to meet with me because she and John were friends and he set it up. And she had me read 2 scenes cold in her office when I met her, and called this woman, Ro Diamond, and said, "I just met this girl from Kentucky and I had to read a couple of scenes and I think you should meet her." And I went and I met Ro probably the next day. And Ro was my agent for 10 years.
Wow.
And then to like how I actually got here, we had no idea what any of it meant, what was
Sure,
happening.
sure.
We can choose to leave this in or not. I mean, my family at the time was, poverty level. Like, this whole world was like, it just seemed like a fantasy almost. Like, we just had
Right.
no idea what to expect or what we were doing. And Ro was really wonderful and was like, if you could audition for this or that. I ended up auditioning for something immediately. I ended up getting like a test deal for it, which to this day I'm like, was this just a favor that like Ro called in? It was a show called Unhappily Ever After that was on the WB when the WB
Yeah,
was
yeah,
the
yeah.
new network or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
They wanted to test me for this character they were adding. I knew I wasn't gonna get it, but we did the whole test thing. It was crazy. And she managed to get me a holding deal with the
Yeah,
WB, and the WB put me in another pilot.
yeah.
So that holding deal funded my entire, like, my junior year of high school in Louisville. I went back and forth like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Happily Ever After called and had me do a couple of episodes. Anyway, got my SAG card, had this whole
Amazing.
deal, and
Amazing.
then they put me in a pilot. They tell me the pilot is on the air. It was Miller Boyette at the time, who
Hmm.
had like a
Hmm.
ton of success and like whatever.
Sure. Sure.
And so they're like, it's sold, it's on the air. I don't know if this is going to make any sense to anybody, but us. There's also all of the crazy in between family and like emotional, like it was really intense, this like time in our lives. And we were like, this pilot I was put into was a sold series on the air. And me and my mom and my brother packed up like a Woody station wagon. I did the pilot, but it was going to be on the air. So we had to move because it was
Right.
shoot. And my mom, brother, and I drove out here over like the course of a week in 1997. And after we got here, they said that they had changed their mind about the show.
Right.
It was no longer on the air or even going to go. I was like,
It's so heartbreaking and not unusual. I mean, people need to
no,
understand statistically, it's like
no.
unbelievable that anything ever goes on the air or stays on the air or anything. So yeah,
It was a very quick lesson of,
yeah, yeah.
what can happen. And we didn't know any better. And everyone did the best they could in the situation. And my family stayed. We ended up staying. I think all of us maybe were curious about a different life, or I don't want to say a better life, but just, leaving Kentucky and starting something kind of new. And later my older brother came out and I continued luckily to get like a guest star here and there, and over time make a little bit of money, and then that was that. And then
Amazing, amazing.
I did like a pilot a year, which was also really helpful like financially, and then one ended up going on UPN for like 10 episodes. And then a few years later I got another one, and it was a couple years after that that I got Psych. So we're spanning like a 9-year period that got me to Psych,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's how I got to LA. Of course, many, like I said, other little, so many other, the best story actually that I probably should tell this version of it was that everyone kept telling me I looked like the girl in the Aerosmith videos and Clueless movie, Alicia
Oh,
Silverstone.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I absolutely can see that.
Yeah, when I was in high
I
school
didn't
too.
know she was in Aerosmith videos. I don't know
Yeah.
how I didn't know
She
that,
had
but
these
yeah,
like
I absolutely know. Yeah.
two pretty like, a couple of really hot videos, whatever. So they became very popular and everyone kept telling me I looked like her. And my brother was at a little barber shop in Kentucky and he read, in fact, this is the moment that we actually were like, how would I go to LA and audition for something? He read in a magazine, like a People magazine, at our local little barber shop in our neighborhood that was called Cut Me Loose. So cute. That they were looking for an Alicia Silverstone lookalike
Oh
for the Clueless series. If you remember, they did that for a little while,
yeah.
that they were doing. And Nick
Yeah.
ran in the door. He stole the magazine from the place, like runs in the door, and he was like, "This is it.
Yeah, this is it.
This
This
is
is
the
the
thing.
sign.
This
This is
is
the
the thing."
sign.
Which is what led us to like call John. I mean, that is how naive. Like we had no
But
idea.
so let me stop you there for a second. And I don't
Yeah.
want to step on the run of the story because it is so fun. And I love origin stories. And I love
Yeah.
hearing how, to me, there is nothing more fun than somebody having a dream and not even knowing what that dream entails. One of
Yeah.
the things I talk about in coaching all the time is not so much the how, but the why.
Mm,
Meaning, when you have a dream, what's the why for you? And then if you have a clear why, like because I love acting, or because it seems wonderful to pretend to be somebody else, or because I've always wanted to go to California, or because I just want to express myself, or I want to entertain people, or I want to pick people up, whatever the why is.
mhm,
The why, when it's so clear for
mhm,
you in
mhm.
anything you do, the how shows up.
Finds its way.
Yeah. And now
Totally.
you can't lay in bed and be
No.
like,
No,
I
because
want
it's a part of the how is,
the
and part of
doing.
the why is the momentum of the doing. So
Yes. So
even if
yes,
it's
you do need to be taking acting classes or show up as the Munchkin and Wizard of Oz at your local theater when you're 8. And you do need to go to the showcases when they're available. And you do need to take the business card of the person. And you do need to call them. Like you do need to do the how, but you
yeah.
don't need to know the how when you're creating the why, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
And what
that's
I love is that
Amazing.
you had the why, which was I love this. I like being on stage, or I like performing, or I like it's fun.
Feeling. I felt like I was like, you get to explore these other parts of yourself through playing these other people. Like it was just wild to me. Like the whole thing of it was so crazy. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I still love it.
I know.
I love every part of it. Yeah.
And I love watching you love it. Like I love,
Oh,
that's why I love watching you as an actress, because you're so committed to your characters. You're so much fun to watch. You never feel like you're acting. It's just like, it just
thank
is.
you.
It's just so seamless. And you're like that as a human being. Every conversation is easy. You're so fun. You're so soulful. But so I
Same.
love, thank you.
I
But
mean, my
s-
God, that's why I can, but thank you. That's like, what? That's so nice, especially coming from you. You're like, I look up to you.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So anyway,
Oh,
I love
yeah.
these stories. They're my favorite. My favorite is I had no idea about Hollywood, or I had no idea about this profession that I saw it or whatever. And I love hearing, I've interviewed, so many different people from so many different disciplines, from authors to yoga instructors to actors to professional surfers. And I love hearing, like, how did they find their path? Like, how did they fall in love with their craft, or how did their craft
Find them almost.
find them?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So thank you, because I love that story. And what I love, actually, when you say, well, we didn't know anything, I didn't know how hard it is to break into Hollywood. That's kind of what I love too, is the innocence and
Yeah,
just the pure passion
yeah,
was your drive. I just
yeah.
love it. Okay.
That
So
and
I love
also,
that your family also supported you and like moved here, because you were a teenager. You couldn't really do
I
it
was a
on your
teenager.
own.
Yeah, I mean, I did my senior year of high school through correspondence. My school even supported me to come. But yeah, my mom and my brother, I mean, it's when I think back on it now, also when I think about like my mom being basically my age now with 3 kids. One my older brother came later, but 2 kids that one of them's like, I wanna act for a living." So the
Yeah.
other family didn't, and my younger brother being like, "All right, I guess I'll if there's a school out there, maybe I'm done with Kentucky too, and I'll go." And everybody like, "What?" And then
Yeah.
my mom, I think about, like, what she did being my age now, having 2 teenage kids, and making that happen. And also this, like you were talking about, the doing and like the how. I think also part of it was like I literally could see it, like I would dream about it and not in
Hmm.
a way, but I have to credit my mom for that and
Hmm.
our house, it was like, nothing was off the table. If it could
Hmm.
be dreamt, it was like, then dream it. And
Yeah.
it was never like, oh, that could never happen or that, there was always some kind of, I don't know, support for that I was allowed to even go there in my own
Yeah.
imagination and then have all
Yeah.
this, like, it was, yeah, it's
But
funny.
I imagine that's also because you had a great work ethic in everything you did, whether that was in academics or athletics or even friendships. Like, you're such a follow through kind of person. You're such an upstanding person. And I
Jackie.
think that when you show that kind of conviction in life, I think it's much easier. I mean, I have 3 kids, so I know that for me, where I was probably the most supportive was where there was effort being made, right? So if one
Right.
kid had a particular passion, something, right? Not
Right.
necessarily
Right.
something like this, but I wanted to support them where I could, because I loved that they had passion for that. And that didn't mean they were going to make a living doing it, right? That's okay.
Yeah, but that's okay. It
Yeah.
also like it's almost like a muscle. Like if you can go there, even if it's not the thing you end up doing, if it's not the you learn after step 12, it's not for you. That's okay. Like
Yes. Totally.
I love hearing that. And you know what? I will actually relate this to psych too, and you and this freedom that we had that you gave us and support to sort of like find the show rather than like telling us what it needed to be or fitting into some category or like whatever it was. You gave us the freedom to be as big and wild and find it and turn psych into like what it became, which was like, I mean, I look at some of these episodes now, Jackie, as we're like watching the podcast, and I'm like, who let us do this? Like, this is magic. It's so cool. Like we
Yeah.
did a live show this weekend and we were just talking
Oh
about
yeah,
like,
talk about that tour. So let's just
oh,
step back for a second.
okay.
Let's talk about what you're doing like right now.
Oh,
So you and Tim
yeah.
go.
We're so lucky. We are on a one city we can't announce yet, I think,
Okay.
but like a 9 to 10 city tour with the psychologists are in. We are hitting a bunch of Comic Cons. The first one we actually did was in San Francisco this weekend, which was at Sketchfest, which has
Awesome.
been around forever and it's wonderful. And we did it last year, which is sort of how all of this kicked off, even because Tim, with everything Tim has been through,
So my audience may not know Tim, so you need to kind of just like back up
yes.
and explain all the things.
So Timothy Amundsen is my partner in the podcast. He was also my partner on Psych, which Jackie and I have been talking about for 8 years and plus movies. We were all best friends anyway, but Tim and I were very much like, he's the best. Oh, he's just the best. Anyway,
He
so
is. He is so dear and so wonderful. And again, partner on the show, partner on the podcast. Tim has
yes.
an actual wife and kids, like
Oh,
not
yes.
partner
Tim
in
has an
life.
actual, yes,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
Good partner on the
But
show. We
partner on
were
the show and partner in the podcast. Yes.
literal detective partners. And
Yes.
yes, he's my
Yes.
co-host partner on the podcast.
Right.
And we were about to do our first movie in 2017, a reunion movie of Psych. It had been off the air for a few years. And right before Tim had a massive stroke in April of 2017. And honestly, I mean, this is his story to tell, but
Yeah. And I'm going to have him on the podcast and tell the story.
wonderful.
So,
It was real bad for a while. Like we
yeah.
didn't know anything, didn't know even if like Tim would still be here. And he has talk about like a spirit, man. Like this guy is such a warrior. He's so incredible. And what he's had to overcome and fight through and believe in, as you were talking about, like you have to believe, you have to like in the how, like Tim is one of these people, like he will, Jackie, I'm telling you, in the next like 2 years, the projects that he already has like laid the seeds for that
So
are
cool.
going to, oh my God. It's like,
So cool.
but last year we went to San Francisco, did Sketchfest. It was our first live. I mean, we've done the safety of our Zoom and podcast studio, but we were on stage live doing this podcast. It was like the muscle memory of that for him. Everything came back and clicked. He was so nervous, but he was, as he was magic on stage. Like it was
Wow.
incredible.
Wow.
And we had such a good time. So much so that after Allison, his wife, and the woman who's been sort of leading the charge in this tour that we're doing was like, we have to be on stage and Tim needs to be on stage. Like, and also over the last year, we can decide whether we want to leave this in or not, but like his healing, like his progress, he sends me his like progress report every week when
Mm-hmm.
he does a walk and he listens to
Mm-hmm.
our podcast, and he'll
Oh.
send me the steps
Mm-hmm.
that he did.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jackie, he was going from like, you know, a quarter mile, which is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
to like, he's like walking 2 miles now
Mm-hmm.
while he's listening to these things. Like it's just been incredible. So anyway, it
It's
started there.
amazing. So it's like he's healing by doing what he loves.
I think so, in that, like, at least what I have seen being so close to him, and I'm not taking, I don't, again, this is all for him to share, but as a witness to him and his healing, which is also just, Tim is a walking warrior spirit, miracle, like you name it, like to be around him and sort of witness it. It's just really powerful and what he's done. But over this like last year or so, and then when we do these live shows, from his singing, his voice is back, it's coming back, like all of those things that I think he was like, well, I don't know if that will happen. I just need to, but his dream is to sing on stage with me at some point. And I know that we're
Mm.
going to do that at one of our shows. Like that's what's going to happen. But the point of all of this is to say last year, something really magical happened on stage when we were at Sketchfest. And a woman who is like our sort of talent booker agent for these shows was like, I think we need to get you all in, like, we need to get a tour together. And here we are a year later, we're about to go out on almost
Amazing. How old is the Psychologists Are In podcast?
2021. We premiered a little over 2 years.
And
Yeah.
then the live tour has been just this last year.
Yeah, we did only 2 shows last year. We did it in
Okay.
Detroit and San Francisco, but
Mm.
from the experience we had in Detroit, these Comic-Con shows that are happening across the US have booked us separately to come and have our own, like, live show or live theater or whatever to do these shows. It's really insane.
Amazing and
Yeah.
so much fun.
Honestly, even just this weekend in San Francisco, like, it's so much fun because we get to be together, but also we're talking about, like, the greatest time, and I'm not gonna say, well, there will be many other great times, but, like, this time in our lives on psych was truly magical, and so we get to also, like, share and relive all of that. Like, it just keeps it has such a heartbeat.
I
The sh
love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
so
I
it's
love
amazing.
that it's
So,
like the
yeah.
gift that keeps on giving.
It
So,
is.
okay, so there's that. So there's the weekly podcast,
Yeah.
and then there's now the live tour.
Yes, Atlanta is next. Richmond, Indianapolis, Oklahoma City, Columbus, San Jose. I know I'm forgetting some. That's not 10. And then one I can't announce yet. Oh, Seattle, I can say.
But I
I
feel
think that's 8 or 9.
like
Yeah.
you should be in Louisville, no?
Yes. So it's funny because
Like
we're like
since that's where it all began, you?
this is my own thing. So there's a thing I'm trying so hard. It's like a huge, it's like Louisville's Coachella, and it's
Uh,
become massive now. It's called Bourbon and Beyond.
love it.
Trying to get them to do live, so it's mostly music, but I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay.
get them to do a couple live, like, stage shows or recordings or whatever, because yeah, or even during, like, the Kentucky Derby time or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
need to, like, get in there.
yeah.
So maybe not
Amazing.
here, but it's on the list for sure.
Okay, so there's that piece of
Yeah.
Maggie Lawson. That's the current events
Mhm.
there. Then let's talk about, I mean, I know also you're acting and you're auditioning, and there's lots on the horizon in that you can't yet announce. But
Yeah.
let's talk about your other podcast, Me Time.
Me time. Yeah. Which you did. You did both.
I did both, but I
Yeah.
love Me Time because it so speaks to what I do for a living now, which
Yeah.
is focusing on self care, self awareness, self compassion, self, not selfish, but self love.
Yeah.
And I love that you decided to do this and create an audience of other, I presume, men and women, but probably mostly women, because
Mhm.
women tend to be a little bit more focused on those kinds of things, to give them permission to focus on themselves and to engage with experts and laymen and all kinds of people about how they
Take care of themselves.
celebrate, yeah, take care of themselves. I was going to say celebrate their me time. So talk to me about like the origin of that podcast, and I want you to kind of nutshell for me what your definition of me time is.
Oh, I love that. It probably started as a need to get away from people, or like, because I have a tendency to be a pleaser, or to kind of, I'd feel drained. And so I would need to almost like hibernate or like go away for a little bit to sort of restore. That's probably how it like all began. But what came out of it was like, I now cherish that time. Like, I mean, I hold it like so like, I know that I have to have it. It's like medicine for me, even if it's just like
Mm,
a few minutes, even if it's just, and sometimes it's more than that. These were the things I was thinking about when I was putting the podcast together, is like, it could be extravagant, like taking a trip for a couple weeks by myself somewhere, or it can be like 5 minutes of sitting on my balcony in the sun and
mm.
getting something from just being present in that moment that kind of propels me through the rest of the day. I don't know. It always just feels like a nice gift. So, when I was doing the podcast, to be honest with you, I wasn't really setting out to make like a lifestyle podcast or
Mm.
anything like that. It was more kind of talking to Sim, who runs the company, the podcast company I'm with, and just throughout conversations we were having, we're like, where is this podcast of you like talking about? 'Cause I was pitching them ideas all the time, but they're like, about you just sort of talking about this. Like, I think I had just gone somewhere by myself for a little while or whatever, and was talking about what I get from those alone experiences. And by the way, I don't want to say like me time has to be alone time. I think me time
Right.
can be
No,
connective time with people. It's sort of what
definitely.
fills the bucket and your soul, right? So the definition isn't, there really isn't one. It's just what that is for you, and making sure you give yourself the time and space to do it. So the podcast was like, Well, I'm going to share this because it's a big part of my life. It's also a huge fear of mine to talk about myself or to share these sort of intimate parts of myself. And so I wanted to also face that fear a little bit
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and see where that went, and then having, as you were saying, like experts on, and also just like discovering, like part of my me time is like I just want to learn about a new thing. It could be something like, how to cook something properly, or how to like,
Yeah.
wine. I've had a lot of wine people on because I love wine. Or actual healers and people who are like experts in this field. And so it just started happening, Jackie. Like I just was like, all right, I think I have an idea. So I first started talking to friends because I love the idea of talking to some of my friends who I were actors or celebrities, in a sense that, like, sharing sort of what they do to
Right.
stay okay and healthy in their time. And
Right.
from that just came really interesting conversations. And now I'm just like, it's just like kind of flowing, and I'm learning so much from people. And then I also find, like, when I share things, even if I'm afraid to or it feels super vulnerable, I usually hear from people like, thank you for sharing this thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, sharing actually, it helps other people, and
Yeah.
it can be, make other people feel less. I feel that way when I
Yeah.
hear someone share something that's like revealing, or, an intimate part of themselves, or even if it's a funny story or a serious story or whatever it is, there's always this like connection. I don't know. Anyway, that's such a long answer, Jackie.
No,
You think
it's a
I have
great
a
answer. So,
podcast?
but one of the things you said before on the episode where we talked, you said your me time changes all the time, which I
Yeah,
appreciate, right? And
yeah,
it needs to. I mean, some things I talked about this, like my daily habits, and
I
I'm
love.
kind of a broken record on that. But so I have some things that are what I refer to as my non-negotiables, my foundational sort of systems that I do every day. And that's just how I sort of anchor my brain and stay grounded.
Yeah,
But then me time, to your point, changes because
yeah,
sometimes you need a vacation by yourself, and sometimes you need 5 minutes in the sun, and sometimes you need to be with friends. And
people,
that's
right?
people. Yeah. And I'm just curious with this tour that you're doing, because I know that can be so exhausting and exhilarating, right? There's
Yeah,
nothing more amazing than being with fans, people who love your work, asking you questions. You're making their day. You might be making their whole life, like to meet you and hear your stories. That's so fills your cup, but it also is very draining to
yeah,
be with people who need you and love you,
yeah,
and flying and staying in hotels and all the things. So with this tour, I don't need to ask you why you're doing it because I know how fun and amazing it is. And not to mention spending time with Tim on stage. But how are you getting your me time away from the stage when you have, I used to have a holistic doctor who used to say, you can't pour out all your chi meaning life energy, right? You have to like
right.
rein it back into, oh, and Maggie just picked up her brand new puppy who is
He was about to start making.
so cute.
He is. I mean, I really am
Sorry,
a
we have
jackpot.
to just have a moment to just like see this little puppy. So what now that you're on this tour and you're running around from city to city, hotel to hotel,
Yeah,
airports, all the
yeah.
things, how or what are you doing for your me time during this tour?
Well, honestly, that's such a good question because I feel like in the midst of it, so obviously in my downtime, I will, if I'm home, I usually need like a full day after one of those to like,
Understood.
which I can't always get, right? So like that, which and most people can't. But ideally, what I will do is I will try to clear the schedule for like a day or so, just to have a little breathing time. Because it's also, Jackie, you nailed it. Like I find like the experience is so magical to me to be there with
Yeah.
Tim, to talk about psych, to meet all of these people. It is really, yes, it can be overwhelming with all of the people, but the feeling is actually like, it's really moving, it's really touching. So I also like to just have a little time, usually on the plane, that's when I'll do it, but I'll just like look back at all the photos, and I'll like kind of like relive it a little bit and just like take in like this crazy thing that we get to do.
Yeah.
Also, it feels so different. I feel so lucky because like I've been acting my whole life, and then this is kind of something different, and it's scary. And so there's also that exhilarating part that's like, oh yeah, we did it. We actually did it.
Yeah.
But when I'm in it, that's when I'm more like, if I can carve out, let's say, for example, we finish our day at 5.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people that are going to go to dinner,
Okay.
right? And
Yep.
probably get some drinks and have a great time. And, we're in the city and it's these, we're having a ball. I will either be very late to that or I will leave very early from that. I'm totally giving away to the people I'm spending time with because I have to go be in my own space
I
for a
get that.
little while.
I get that.
So if everyone's like, let's change and I'll meet, I'll be like, oh, I have, I have something I have to do or I have a call or whatever. And Jackie, sometimes I swear to God, this is terrible. I'm going to say this. Sometimes that for me is going and sitting and having a glass of wine and doing a crossword puzzle at the bar
Yep.
just for
Yep.
like an hour
Yep.
to totally come back, be me, feel like me, and then I can go do whatever
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to do,
Yeah.
even if it's like a block away.
Yeah.
So that's usually what it is. It also might be if there is a bathtub, I'll do a literal wash off of the day. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
literally just lay there and imagine like I'm just sort of cleansing and clearing, and then I can go and I can be whatever it needs to be. So I try not to, it's not even just like the time in between like the trips, like during the actual experience.
Yeah.
The other thing I do is I generally don't eat with anyone. So like I might eat with like Tim and Allison, but like when we have our little lunch break, even during those things, I will go find a quiet corner and I will just listen to music. I'll eat whatever I need to eat and I'll just sort of zone out for a minute. I mean, it's not like I'm going and meditating or it's something really simple usually that I just have to feel like
Well,
myself.
so let me just comment on that because meditation is one of my go-to foundational elements, but it's something I do in the morning when the world is still very quiet. That's not to say you can't meditate in the middle of the day, the afternoon, the evening, like
Yeah.
whatever time you feel you can meditate is great. I just happen to like that stillness of the morning. That's just when I'm most receptive to meditation.
I don't meditate, but that is my time. Jackie, I had times where my call time was like 5:30 and I would get up at 3:30 or 4
In the
just
morning, you're talking
have
about?
the hour. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
just for
to
that
have the
time.
stillness.
Yeah.
But so whether it's meditation or it's a shower or it's a bath or it's a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle, I do Sudokus and I also like Wordle and Quirtle and Connect New York Times Connections. Like that's
I
also
love
part of my
it. You
morning.
do them all.
I
Yes.
do them all. In fact,
I
that's
love
part
it.
of my morning routine
Mhm.
because it just like clears my brain. But
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things to do is to sit and do a puzzle
me too.
for just a little bit. And so I would call that hitting the reset button.
Hmm.
And however you can hit the reset button so that you can then go plug in back to your social group or your work life or whatever it is. I think it's really important. I think what happens is, it's like the law of physics, right? So when you spin a top, it spins in one direction, right? So all you have to do is like give it like one or two
Yep.
spins and then it keeps going.
Yeah.
And what happens is we don't ever stop once we start spinning. We just go, 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 go.
Such a good way to put it. Right.
And I think it's super important. And everybody's capacity is different, right? So some people it's an hour and some people it's days, but it's important to recognize your limits and you're so good at it. But to
Mm.
say, I need a timeout
Yeah.
without any negativity, without any judgment, without not self judgment, not judgment from others. I need a timeout. And because I don't want to make anybody feel bad about my timeout, I'm not going
Right.
to tell them I need to get away from you for a half hour.
No.
I need to, you're just like, I got to make a call.
Yeah, I just got something
Perfect.
I gotta do for a little bit. So I'll say that. I'll just be like, I
Perfect.
gotta, yeah, make a call. I gotta return some email. I might have a Zoom. I don't know what it might be, but if I need that, yeah, because I do think sometimes, well, is that a white lie? I
No,
mean, it's
no,
not.
no,
I probably
I
did
don't
make
think
a
so
phone call
because,
in that time.
well, I guess in the sense that you're not telling them I need a timeout, but you don't need to
Good
tell
timeout.
them you need a timeout.
Honestly, on this trip, sometimes most people kind of get it. If you do say something like, I need like an hour, go eat, I'll meet you there. Like, I need to
Yes,
like shake off the day. A lot of people do understand that, but like you're usually it will be, yes, I'll just say I gotta make a call and I'll see you guys.
love it. I
Yeah.
love that. That is
Yeah.
such good self-care.
Thanks, Jackie.
That is
I
such
guess
good
I
self-care.
have to.
Your dog, as you're sitting here doing this interview, has literally fallen asleep practically in your
Yeah.
arms because
Yeah.
you're so calm and so, oh my God,
He's
it's just the
asleep, Jackie.
cutest thing.
He is just like, I just hit the jackpot. I can't believe I just like adopted this little one. Like, little over a month ago. And anyway,
So cute.
yeah,
Just so cute. I wish I knew how to do a screenshot, but of
this
course I
is
don't.
actual me time for me too.
Yeah.
My animals always bring me back to myself. Like there's something about taking, like, he gets me out of bed every day. I have to take him on a walk first thing in the
Yeah.
morning. And
Yeah.
your day is beginning. Anyway, I could go on about the animals. I kid.
Well, I
It's
think
such a
animals,
good
actually,
story.
there's a lot to be learned from our animals, which is they eat on a schedule. Like we don't think about
Wow.
like just feeding our dogs or cats. I mean, cats are a little different. We
Yeah.
generally speaking, we don't think about feeding our dogs just any old time. It's not like when we feel like it or
Yeah.
when we remember. We
Yeah.
remember, depending on the dog, generally they eat twice a day.
Right.
And we remember, like first thing in the morning and around dinner time, they get their meal. We don't forget to give them water. We leave them out a big bowl of clean water every day so that they can
Yes.
drink whenever they need to. We
Such a
don't
good point.
tell them not to nap when they're tired. We allow them to play. We encourage play. And yet we don't do those things for ourselves. It's
Yeah.
so interesting, right?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I mean, or it's not. I mean, it's so interesting that we are so aware of that with them and yet don't give ourselves that sort of same thing.
Yeah.
And they're just pure love. Like
S-
just
So
unconditional.
before I lose you, because I don't want to keep you longer than an hour,
Okay.
tell me the tour, the two podcasts, the
Yeah.
pilot season that you're in the middle of as you're
Yeah, there's stuff happening.
what
Definitely busy.
yeah, what else are you
Developing a
excited about?
show.
Oh,
I don't think I can talk about that
don't
yet.
talk about that yet.
Yeah, but developing a show that has had some very exciting movement lately. And yeah, I feel like I'm totally missing something, but I'm not. I feel like I have been in an interesting space lately of like, there are these other things. It used to just be I'm doing the show or I'm acting or whatever. And now it's kind of cool to have these other things happening and going on. So,
Well,
um,
I think you've just expanded your role. I think before you probably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me, but for 20 some years, you were an actress
yeah,
and are an actress. I mean, that hasn't changed.
yeah.
But now you're a podcast host
I
and
know.
now you're a live entertainer as well. And now you're a producer and you
Yeah,
are like wearing so many more hats and that's got to be so much fun.
it is. It really is. I also think it's a really fun time right now. Okay, I feel like when I first started and even throughout my career, there was a little bit of like, you're an actress and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And this idea that you could be an actress, a comedian, a host, an author, have a food line. Like I look at people like the Joel McHale's and the Michelle Buteaus and like the people who are just like doing all of it.
Yeah.
Anything goes. Use
Yeah.
all of your talents. Anything you can do. If it's an idea, is great. You think of it like it's all kind of accepted and encouraged now, even where it used to just be like, oh, if you were an actor, hosting might be selling out a little bit, or if you were a host you may not be taken seriously as an actor.
Right.
And now it's like I feel
The
like
lines are so blurred.
yes, in a great way,
An
like
awesome way.
talent is actually being supported on every front. If it's like, yeah, 2024 is kind of my year of just yes. So I'm excited to just say yes and see where that goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, like, would it be possible to say that you're trying to get into that same frame of mind you had when you were 15 years old and
Yes.
you picked up that card from that talent agent and decided just to call 3 years later
Yes.
and see what was possible?
Yes. Don't overwhelm yourself with step 30 when you're just on step one. Like
Right.
just take the step and say yes, and then take
Right.
the next step and say yes, and take the
Right.
next step. Because I will immediately think of, I'll start putting like the obstacles in on the
Yeah.
complete unknowns of
Yeah.
things that are so far off in the whatever that I will overwhelm myself with that fear and then stop the momentum of what the green lights and the doors that are opening are already like that part that's happening. So
Well, have you ever seen the meme or the photo or the cartoon of the two ladders side by side? And they're like 20 feet tall, the ladders, right? Like you don't see even the top of the ladder. It goes from the ground to the top. And one of the ladders, they're the same height. One of the ladders has like 4 steps, and the steps are the space between them is taller than the person who's climbing the ladder. So there's literally no way to get to the next step. And the other ladder, which is the same height,
Mhm.
has like 100 steps, and they're really tiny.
Yes. I know what
And
you're
the
saying.
metaphor, of course, being
Right.
just take the baby steps.
Yeah.
You'll end up at the same place, but you don't have to take these big leaps that are not possible
Yeah.
because you just need to keep stepping forward or up.
Listen to Jackie, everybody. You are like you walk your talk. Is that right? Talk. What?
I
How
talk
does
my
that go?
walk, walk my
No,
talk. I
meaning you
don't know.
talk your meaning like what you preach, you are of that. Like what you talk about, what
Thank
you
you.
study, what you work, like you
Thank you.
live that. Like you are
Yeah.
the living version of that. But
Thank
I
you.
love the ladder thing. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you a
Okay.
picture of it. Thank you for this interview. I
Oh God.
so loved spending an hour with you. You are awesome as
You're
always.
awesome.
And so for those of you who want to stay in touch with Maggie, I want you to either listen to The Psychologists Are In
Thank you.
or to Me Time, or find her on the road with Tim Amundsen as they do their psych tour or
Yes.
Psychologists Are In tour,
Yes.
or look for her in the next series that she will be in, which hopefully she'll announce in the next month or two.
Yes.
And
Let's just say I will. I will announce
you
something in the
will.
next month or
And
two.
where can they follow you on social media?
At Mags Laws Lawson is my Instagram. And then I have a Me Time with Maggie on Instagram at Me Time with Maggie. And then at The Psychologists Are In. Any of those you can find, and also find the links for the episodes. Jackie, you're the greatest. Thank you so much. And thank you for promoting all this stuff. Everybody needs to listen to Jackie's podcast as well, which you are right now, but like tell everybody. 'Cause
You're awesome. You
she's
are
the
awesome.
best.
Well, thank you again. And I
Yeah.
am going to see you very soon because
Yeah.
we're going to have lunch this week.
We
And
are.
so we're going
I
to
can't wait.
click off this recording right now, and then we're going to plan our lunch.
Yay! I
All
love it.
right. Bye.
Bye.